All right, well, it's now that time of day where we have a chat to our political panel. We've been joined on this day by our Labor MP, Louise Miller-Frost. Thank
Hello.
you very much for joining us from your South Australia into Canberra this time. And we also have Dai Le, independent member for Fowler in Sydney. So thank you both for being with us. Louise, I want to start with you. The government today has announced that it's going to introduce a bill to make sure that the NBN can't be privatised. Why do we need that bill?
Look, I think the NBN is a really fundamental piece of architecture of our entire society, certainly our economy. It is really fundamental to the way we live our lives now, for study, for business, for telehealth, for banking. Like, we all rely on having a safe, reliable, affordable NBN. We have a Liberal Party that has a history of selling things off, a la Telstra. We've had the member for Flinders today on Sky saying, yes, it was always their intention to sell it off when the time is right. I think
it doesn't really look very right, though, does it? I mean, the NBN isn't in the best financial stakes. It doesn't look like a particularly attractive option to sell it off right now. Is there really a risk of a Dutton government, if it got elected, selling it off at this point?
So in the last Morrison government, they did actually declare that it was completely rolled out. I'd have to say that certainly some of the residents in my electorate would dispute that, but that was the first step to actually being able to sell it off, and they were bumping up the prices so that it became a bit more of a, cash cow, more attractive. They have history on this sort of thing. We need to ensure that it doesn't. We can't risk that will be next time they have another deficit, as they've had for 9 years, that this is where they get the cash.
All right. Do you think the public really want to see the NBN stay in public hands? Is that something that people might come to your electorate office and ask you about?
Look, we've got problems with NBN in the Fowler electorate. Obviously, it's not as fast as it's claimed to be. And some households have got access to it, others actually do not have any access to NBN. And of course, people get probably faster through their 5G network than NBN. So I think there's a lot of public money that has been poured over the years from both sides, both major parties. And I think the question is, are you going to keep on feeding public money into a big elephant? Will that actually do the work that it's supposed to be doing? With technology constantly evolving, is NBN really in front of the whole technology in terms of fast access, internet access and all that stuff? So in my community, certainly we are having a problem with NBN access.
I think there's a lot of questions and certainly a lot of frustrations around internet technology, even beyond the NBN as well. So look, I want to move on. The government has also announced that it is going to have a standalone Cyber Security Act, just to make sure that it can really have some focused, dedicated attention to be able to force major infrastructure companies to upgrade their level of protection if they need to. We know a lot of people have suffered when companies have been hacked. We've seen it with Optus, we've seen it with Medibank. Do you think it's a good decision of the government to try and bolster its legislative support here?
Look, I think it's a good thing to have legislation around cybersecurity, because we are experiencing so much of the hacking. And as you mentioned, Optus is a great example of that. But I think we've got to ensure that the data, personal data, is somehow protected, and that is got to do with ransom, handing over people's personal data. It's so important that and I think the public really don't trust anything that the government touches when it comes to private information. So we've got to be making sure that whatever the government's doing, that the personal private details of individuals are protected.
And is that ultimately what this bill is about? I mean, it's directed at what companies do and what smartphones must have, but ultimately I assume it's about protecting the consumer.
Oh, absolutely. So, in the last financial year, there were 94,000 reported cyber attacks. That's massive, and that's increasing. We need to ensure that people's data is safe no matter where it's kept. And, we have our personal data in a large number of organisations, your local gym, your bank, your health insurance,
social media.
Social media. But also the idea that somebody can hack into your personal network at home via your RoboVac or your electronic watering system, you know, that's actually really quite a dangerous thing. So we need to ensure that we're protecting Australians, that we actually know what's going on. That 94,000 reports is only the ones that are reported.
All right, and look, one last issue to touch on is the news today that Fatima Payman has set up her own party, Australia's Voice, is what she's decided to name it. She wants to try and get some people to run under that banner in the coming election. We don't have much more detail than that, but Dai Le, as an independent candidate, how difficult is it to actually win a seat without the backing of a major party behind you? How do you think her chances will go in getting candidates up successfully?
Look, I don't know what her profile is like in Western Australia, but I think in any seats you have to have connection with your community first and foremost. You are visible, you've been there, you've been working in the community, volunteering and being very active. So I think for an independent who's just come in, to campaign, it's not an easy win unless, of course, you've got huge backing, financial backing from major corporations or whatever outfit. But for an independent, I mean, people forget that I have been in the community for so long. I grew up there, I've been a councillor and still on the council.
You're not starting from scratch.
I'm not starting from scratch. So, but the financial part is quite challenging because you have to fund it yourself as an independent. So that is the financial challenge. But I think to run a party for an independent, you must know that you're there for the community, you're in the community, working with the community every single day.
All right, Louise Miller-Frost, very briefly, because we do need to wrap, but do you think this will be a challenge to Labor in key seats?
Oh, look, it's really hard to know. There's no information on her position on anything at this point in time, so we'll have to wait and see.
I think we'll see over the coming weeks and the coming months how it goes, but Louise Miller-Frost and Dai Le, thank you both for joining with us for this political panel on Afternoon Briefing. Now,